to another training, another week of George Washington, Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior. We are coming in company and conversation, coming in to this week with Rules 22 through 26. We got another 5 for you. And just a reminder, man, so much learning personally, how much I've been applying myself to some of these rules. You know, I think George Washington, and again, look this up, don't quote me, I think he wrote this book when he was 16 years old. You believe that? 16 years old. And you just learned common sense, common behavior. It's fantastic. So we're going to go with number 22. It says, show not, and just the language of this, right? Don't show or show not. It's interesting. Show not yourself glad at the misfortune of another, though he were your enemy. And again, this can apply, it's all common sense, but common sense had once to be written so that we can all understand it as such. It basically, in English 2025, you shouldn't be happy when somebody's going through something bad, even if he's your enemy. You shouldn't show that. It says specifically you shouldn't show it. Being happy inwardly or not, rule number 23 is different. 23, when you see a crime punished, you may, so you're allowed to be inwardly pleased, but you should always show pity to the suffering offender. The suffering offender, the person that committed the offense is suffering, you should always show pity, or you should always show disagreement. It's what it's saying. So even though I might be happy inside about something that, a crime being punished, I should be showing that I'm upset, because that's common sense, showing that I'm upset to the person that is now suffering, although he was the offender. Does that make sense? Rule number 24, do not laugh too much or too loud in public. Look, we've all been in that theater room. We've all been in that meeting, in that convention. We've all been in that public speech, or somebody speaking from stage, and there's a joke or there's a comment, there's a laugh, and one laugh arises through the crowd way more than the others. Usually these are the sanguine people in the crowd, and that's how you know it's a no test needed. Sanguine is when you can hear them laugh louder than everyone else, and their laugh is so you should try to control that. You should not laugh either too much or too loud in a public setting. Again, it draws attention to you, therefore it's not the most decent or common thing to do around in company. Rule number 25, superfluous compliments and all affectation of ceremony are to be avoided, yet where due, they are not to be neglected. So similar to where last week we were talking about, I think, if I go back to last week, let me check, because I remember rule number 17 last week, don't be a flatterer, neither play with any that delights not to be played with. You shouldn't be, in this case, superfluous in compliments to where you could flatter somebody in all affectation. However, if there is a wedding, if there's again, it talks about a ceremony, a baptism, if there is compliments that are due, you shouldn't withhold them, you shouldn't retain them. However, you shouldn't be overly superfluous or almost to where it draws more attention to you, the complimenter, than the complimented person. So I think that, again, there's a balance there. I think the Rule 25 speaks about balance. Rule 26, and this one's a harder one to read just because it's longer. So we're going to go for it. In pulling off your hat to persons of distinction, as noblemen, justices, churchmen, and make a reverence, bowing more or less according to the custom of the better bred and quality of the person. Among your equals, you should expect not always that they should begin with you first, but to pull off your hat when there is no need is affectation. In the matter of saluting and resaluting in words, keep the most usual custom. So I think it talks about, again, pulling your hat out in mode of respect, and maybe to a king. You've seen this on TV, or in reverence to like monarchy. Here it's talking about how you shouldn't do it maybe too much, and you should be thinking about who the person is. So, you know, what's their bread, and you bow more or less according to the custom of the better bread. So you would bow more to a king than you would bow to just an elder, because the king represents a higher bread. And then it talks about if you begin first, it's affectation if you do not need to pull your hat. So if you actually do take your hat off or kind of reverence somebody that is your equal, even though it's not the same meaning as if you do it to a higher bread, it just shows affectation. It just shows love and care is what I take from that. In the matter of saluting or saluting in words, keep to the most usual custom. So if you're saying hi or re-saying hi to somebody and just using words, stay with the usual custom. There's no need to do a reverence. So I think if you look at, old school, like when people would walk in somewhere, when people would travel somewhere, people would always be respected because of their status. They used to attribute somebody with a big belly or somebody a little overweight with being extremely healthy, because that just means they have more access to food, and that would almost be a sign of wealth. And so it's interesting that here it's talking about how much to bow your head depends on who it is that you're talking to. And if you think about it, even if you've never thought of this, it makes sense, right? Bowing a lot more, almost kneeling to the highest respect. People kneel to pray and to praise the Lord. It's a similar sign of the more I bow, the more I respect. Or if it's you ever seen the person just quickly take their hats off, and it's just like a quick, like almost like a neck bowing versus like the entire body. It's because it's just a sign of affectation. It's not necessarily a sign of you're bigger or better than me, or I'm saying hello because of your status. I think it's super valuable. And George Washington, again, pulling this off at 16 years old, lots to say from that. So hopefully this helps. Apply it in your business. Drive your common sense, and we'll see you at Rule 27 through 33 or 32 next week. Hope it helps.